My first top tip for any parent at any stage of your child's development, but starting at the very beginning, is to pay attention to your child in an attuned way. There's a lot of research lately that shows that the attunement of the main caring parent, which is often the mother, but not necessarily, is absolutely crucial, not only in helping your child to develop in their behaviour and so on, but actually shapes your child's brain. Can you believe that by your paying attention, attuning to your child, that will do them more good than anything else you can come up with? It's not that hard to do, but it means that you have to be able to set yourself aside and really tune in to where they're at. So when they're tiny, if they start to talk and they go goo goo goo, you don't just repeat it. You maybe say a slightly different sound, but you're with them, you're starting a little conversation with them. For a lot of mothers and fathers, this comes naturally. And for some it doesn't, because if that wasn't done for you when you were little, then it's quite hard to know naturally that this is a good thing to do. So you know the saying, fake it till you make it. So if it's not a natural thing, just try it anyway, and it'll make you feel good, and it'll do a very good thing for your baby. And then as your child gets older, particularly in the terrible twos, when they start to, for example, have tantrums, don't try to shut them down all the time. I mean, sometimes you have to help them contain that emotion, but sometimes just saying, when they stamp their foot and get cross, say, yeah, makes you mad, doesn't it? That's attunement. That you are letting them know that you're in that space with them, that you understand and accept, and it's phenomenal how quickly they then can move on and also feel held, understood, loved by you. Part of attunement is mutual gazing, so actually looking into their eyes, and quite often it's helpful, even if you're wanting to discipline your child, as part of this whole idea of attuning to your child. Don't stand right above them and talk to them, get down to their level, physically, literally, and also getting to their level with the words you use. So obviously you use more baby words for small children, not in a condescending or patronising way, but just be at their level. You will find that if you can attune to your child, it will make a huge difference. My next tip is to do with if your child has a traumatic experience. Now this can happen to children who are otherwise in a very loving and containing and a family that really looks after them. And so therefore not a family that would think my child has mental health needs. However, if your child does have a trauma and you notice that their behaviour is changing, please, please, please get help sooner rather than later, even though it's not something you thought you would ever have to do because, you're not that sort of people in a way. But we're all that sort of people. We're all vulnerable. And believe me, there are treatments that can help your child recover. Really, if it's a small T trauma, something like a road traffic accident or something bad that's happened and everything else is going well for them, a small T trauma can be, the effects of it can be sorted out with, say, half a dozen sessions of therapy. I've seen it so often where I have worked with children who, for example, a young lad who had a road traffic accident and for 3 years had worsening symptoms of trauma, and he was becoming a teenager, becoming really, worse than he should have been. He was a lovely boy, studied hard, and he was getting out of control. 9 sessions, he was all better. His mother said, thank you for giving my son back. So that's really the tip, is when something like that happens, seek professional help sooner rather than later, because then your child won't suffer for so long. My next tip is for mothers of sons. When you say no to your son, no matter what age he is, but starting from a very young age, you need to mean no. No means no. Why is that so important? Well, say for instance you say no about some small thing when your son asks, you go no, and then he nags, and then he promises to be good or whatever, and has a go, or tantrums, and you give in. What is your son learning? Your son is learning that if a female says no, so long as I push her hard enough, she'll say yes. Do you want your son to grow up into a man who does that to women? So it's really, really important, mothers, that if you say no to your son, mean it. Now, the other side of that is, be careful about what you say no to. Because if you just casually say no because you're too lazy to get up off the couch, or you think you shouldn't be asking you that anyway, or you think, whatever, and in a busy life you can get tired and say, oh no, and then think, oh, I should have said yes. Well, you could change your mind, but you could let him know that it's not because anything he's done, it's because you've had to think about it. But also think first is a good idea. And so before you say no, have a think about whether that's really important enough, and think about how important it is to him. And maybe you could say yes a bit more often if that's a better way of dealing with things. But just remember for this tip, with your boys, no means no. Stick to your guns. The next tip is, I think probably a lot of parents do this, so I'm not telling you anything new, but I'm just telling you a good reason for doing it. The tip is, read to your children. Read to them regularly. Read to them at night. Give them a bedtime story. There could be other times you want to read to them as well, but a regular bedtime story is really important. It's not just about getting your child to sleep, but it's a little tiny bit of quality time with your child. That's one thing. But the other thing I've noticed, because I do a lot of cognitive assessments with children, the ones that don't have much of a vocabulary, they're not readers. They haven't been read to. They haven't developed their ability to understand the richness of this wonderful language we have, and to express themselves and to understand what other people are saying. So one of the biggest favours you can do your child, a few minutes every night or several times a week, doesn't have to be every night, but if you can really prioritise reading to your child suitable material at their level, stuff they'll enjoy, please do it. And then, of course, the day comes when they take the book from you and they want to read to you. Well, you can let them do that too. But have reading as an activity that you both enjoy together. Getting the most out of a star chart. Lots of parents use star charts to really make a difference to their child's behaviour. So a star chart is a motivational tool to help increase behaviour that you want to increase, and of course you probably want to decrease some behaviour that you want to decrease. And there's all sorts of techniques that parents have got at their disposal to improve some behaviours and get rid of some other behaviours, but a star chart is a tried and true way to do it. But here's a few tips if you want to get the most out of your star chart efforts. If you've got a behaviour such as, I don't know, getting up in the morning and doing a morning routine. I certainly used that with my children when they were little, or not fighting with their brother or sister, that type of thing. So you target a particular behaviour. So the first step in making your star chart work for you is to target the behaviour very, very clearly. So everyone knows the description of the behaviour, and don't use any qualifying terms such as being naughty. Being naughty, you can't film it, you can't photograph it. It has to be something like kicking your sister. Okay, that you can film. So be very specific about the particular behaviour that you want to decrease or increase, particularly increasing behaviour. So instead of saying not fighting with your sister as a behaviour target, the behaviour you actually target to improve is playing happily together, for example. So you have to think of a positive behaviour that you want to build. So that's the first thing. Be very careful about describing the behaviour in behavioural terms, and look for a positive, not a not being naughty type scenario. So once you've done that, then you need, well, you don't need to, but it really is quite nice and helpful if you make an actual contract. Some people go to the trouble of having a written contract where there's two contracts. One is Tim Smith, the child, do agree to, make my bed or pack my school bag or something that they've agreed to, and in return I expect to get X, Y and Z rewards. And then you, as the parent, sign the one, I, Mrs. Smith, do agree to that if Tim does X, Y, Z, then I'll reward him, and so on and so forth. So you can have a little behavioural contract that you both sign, and it's good to have a contract if you decide that you're going to be quite formal about it, have a start date and a finish date. And that's one of my other points about making start charts work for you. They shouldn't go on forever. They are meant to be brief. They're meant to be training your child's behaviour. They're a training period. They're not forever. And so usually I suggest maximum 4 weeks. So you let your child know this is going to run for 4 weeks. You can run it for 6 or 8 if you want, but kids get a bit bored. So you could run it for 4 weeks. if it's a behaviour that you think you can train up in that amount of time. Often they're behaviours the child could be doing anyway, but they're just not bothering. So 4 weeks, you say a start date, it'll start from this date, it'll end on that date, and a date at which you deliver the rewards, because in between each day you just put ticks or stars or whatever on the chart. But then there comes shopping day, which is perhaps Saturday, when you've got a menu of rewards and you've worked out little rewards that are like 2 stars or something like that. That could be a chocolate bar or a Coca-Cola. And then usually it's good if you work out how many stars they could get altogether in the 4 weeks, and then work out a huge reward that would be worth, a good proportion of those stars, because kids will work very hard to get a big reward, but you need some little ones in between, so they've got to be able to waste a few stars in between. Works really well. It's just like money, really. And money can be one of the things you give them. Some children will do anything for a bit of extra pocket money, but you work out what it is that's motivating for them. One boy that I worked with, he would do anything. He used to... he used to spit at his mother at one stage, but he would do anything to have 20 minutes of his mother's time kicking the football around the garden. So he worked very hard and got lots of stars, and it cost him a certain number of stars to get that. And the other thing is, as part of this story, is that once you, the child, say on the Saturday when you're delivering the rewards, says, well, this is what I want, it's good if you can deliver the reward right then and there, because delay means it's not so rewarding. So you have to be careful not to build in too much delay. Especially don't say, I'll do it later, and later never comes, because children are very aware of that. So it's quite a lot of work for parents, but believe me, it can pay off. My daughter tells me she's still got a little checklist in her head of the 6 or 8 things that were written down for her morning routine when she was a child, and just sort of built in now. So you take the time for training. And then the last thing about making the most of your star chart, when it finishes on the due date, then you surprise them with little rewards for a little bit longer, but they don't know, they're not predictable anymore. So do some unpredictable rewards, like if it's been something like making their bed and they've been doing it for the month and then suddenly the rewards stop. Well, every other day, or every, at least once a week, maybe twice a week, at the beginning after the start chart stops, you notice them doing the good behaviour. So maybe put a little envelope with a smiley face on it and 50p in it on their pillow, something like that. So you dream up some little rewards that you can continue to give randomly. This is called the fading phase of a star chart system. And so you keep noticing, but randomly, and then gradually fade it out, so that they're just doing it. They don't even do it for a reward. It's just something they do. And my final top tip is for you, the parents, and that is, it's important that you look after your own mental health needs. So if you find you're getting particularly stressed or depressed, as people do at certain times in their life, please, please, please make sure that you attend to and look after your own needs. And in fact, don't wait till you get out of sorts with the world. Look after yourself all the time. Have some me time. And for married couples or partners, have some couple time regularly. You've got to be able to indulge yourself. You can't be always giving to your children, because you'll have nothing left to give. So you need to top yourself up on a regular basis, have some treats, have some pampering, look after yourself, because believe me, you'll be a better mummy and daddy for it. You'll have more to give. And not only that, you're setting a fantastic example to your children about how they can look after themselves as well when they get to be big.